February 1st, 1959, 9 experienced hikers set up their tent on a snowy slope in the Ural Mountains of Russia. They made dinner, wrote in their diaries, cracked jokes. Everything was normal. They were not beginners. This group, led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, were all experienced mountaineers and university students from the Ural Polytechnical Institute. They had done expeditions like this before. They knew what they were doing. Their goal was to reach the summit of Otorten, a mountain whose name, in the local Mansi language, translates to "don't go there," which in hindsight is a pretty solid warning. That night, something happened. Nobody knows what, but whatever it was, it caused 9 experienced, trained hikers to slice their tent open from the inside, run out into -30-degree temperatures, and flee down the mountain in the dark. With no shoes, no coats, no gear, none of them made it back. When search parties found them weeks later, what they discovered made no sense at all. And 65 years later, it still doesn't. The search party reached the campsite on February 26th, nearly a month after the group went silent. What they found immediately set off alarm bells. The tent was still there, mostly intact, but it had been cut open from the inside, not torn by an animal, not ripped by the wind, deliberately sliced. From the inside, like someone needed to get out fast and couldn't use the door. All their belongings were still inside. Food, clothes, shoes, cameras, diaries, everything left behind. Whatever made them run, they didn't stop to grab anything. Following footprints in the snow, the search party traced the group's path down the slope. About a mile from the tent under a cedar tree, they found the first 2 bodies. Yuri Doroshenko, 21, and Yuri Krivonishenko, 23. Nearly naked, no shoes, barefoot in the snow. The branches of the cedar tree above them were broken up to about 16 feet. Like they had been climbing it, trying to see something or escape something. The remaining bodies were found over the next 3 months as the snow melted. And this is where it gets truly disturbing. Some had died of hypothermia, which makes sense if you're running through a blizzard with no clothes. But others had injuries that made no sense at all. Nikolai Thibeaux-Brignoles had a major skull fracture. Ludmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotaryov had massive chest injuries. Broken ribs on multiple sides, from an impact so severe that the forensic examiner compared it to the force of a car crash. But there were no external wounds, no bruising on the skin. The damage was purely internal. And then there was Ludmila Dubinina. Her tongue, eyes, and part of her lips were missing. The Soviet investigator closed the case with the conclusion: death caused by a compelling natural force, which is genuinely one of the least satisfying official explanations in the history of official explanations. Okay, so the injuries alone are insane, but that's not even all of it. When investigators examined the clothing of some hikers, they found traces of radiation. Not enough to be immediately dangerous, but definitely there, on multiple items. Nobody could fully explain why. Some of the hikers' clothes appeared to have been swapped, like someone had put on another person's jacket, or was wearing clothing that wasn't theirs. Under extreme cold and panic, people do strange things. But the swapping was specific enough to be noticed. Local Mansi tribespeople who lived in the area reported seeing glowing orange spheres floating in the sky that night. Multiple witnesses, in the same area, weeks before and after the incident. Military personnel in the region reported the same thing, glowing orbs in the sky around the Ural Mountains during that period. And here's one more detail that doesn't get talked about enough. One member of the original group, Yuri Yudin, had turned back early due to illness. He was the only one who survived. For the rest of his life, he returned to the area every year trying to figure out what happened to his friends. He died in 2013, never having gotten an answer. So, what actually happened? Here are the main theories, ranked from most to least plausible. Theory 1, the avalanche. This is what Russian authorities officially settled on when they reopened the case in 2019. A rare type of slab avalanche could have hit the tent suddenly in the night, causing the group to panic and flee. A 2021 study by Swiss researchers actually modeled this and found it physically possible. The internal injuries could be explained by the weight of the snow, similar to getting hit by a car without the external bruising. But, and this is a big but, there were almost no signs of avalanche at the scene. The slope angle was lower than typical avalanche territory, and experienced mountaineers who know the area say they would never have set up camp where they did if they feared an avalanche. Theory 2, infrasound. Some researchers suggest that wind patterns in the Ural Mountains can create infrasound, low-frequency sound waves that humans can't hear but can feel. Studies have shown infrasound can cause panic, disorientation, and even hallucinations. If the group was hit by an infrasound event, They might have fled the tent in blind terror, not knowing what they were running from. Theory 3. Soviet military testing. The radiation on the clothes, the glowing orange spheres, the internal injuries with no external marks. Some researchers believe the group stumbled into a military test zone, possibly a missile test or experimental weapon, and were killed by the blast force or toxic exposure. The Soviet government then covered it up, which would explain why the case was classified for decades. Theory 4. Something else entirely. Some details. The missing tongue, the swapped clothes, the glowing orbs, the radiation, don't fit neatly into any single explanation. A growing number of researchers believe what happened that night wasn't one thing. It was a combination of factors, one triggering the next, in a chain of events that left no survivors and almost no evidence. Russia officially closed the case again in 2021, ruling it was an avalanche. Most researchers and people who have studied the case for years rejected that conclusion immediately. The problem with the Dyatlov Pass incident is that every theory explains some things and fails to explain others. The avalanche explains the injuries but not the radiation or the spheres. The military testing explains the radiation and the injuries, but not why the case wasn't immediately buried even deeper. The infrasound explains the panic, but not the missing tongue or the swapped clothes. What we know for certain: 9 experienced people ran out of their tent in the middle of the night, in -30-degree temperatures, with no shoes or coats, and never made it back. Something scared them so badly that getting out of the tent as fast as possible, by cutting through the fabric, was more important than grabbing a single piece of gear. Whatever that something was, we still don't know. Drop a comment. Which theory do you think is closest to the truth? And if you want a full breakdown of the Soviet military theory specifically, including the rocket launch evidence, let me know, because that one deserves its own video.